So I really think that it's time.
You want to hang out and build this race car, or are you wanting to go now?
So it's time to go.
It was one of television's wildest rides. Fast cars, big money, and larger-than-life personalities. But what really went wrong behind the scenes that made Fast and Loud vanish overnight? Let's explore deeply. When Fast and Loud first roared onto Discovery Channel in 2012, it felt like nothing else on television. It wasn't just a car show, it was an adrenaline-fueled circus of speed, business, and attitude. Viewers couldn't look away. At the center of it all was Richard Rawlings, a fast-talking Dallas hustler with a love for cars, chaos, and cameras. His creation, Gas Monkey Garage, became a dreamland for every car fanatic on the planet. Next to him stood Aaron Kaufman, the quiet genius who could turn rust into beauty and scrap into art. Their partnership was electric. Richard brought the showmanship, Aaron brought the skill. Together, they were unstoppable. Fans tuned in week after week to watch them rescue old cars, rebuild them from scratch, and sell them for massive profits. It wasn't just a restoration show, it was a full-on adventure with real deadlines, real money, and real personalities clashing in every episode. By Season 2, Fast and Loud had become a global hit, airing in more than 200 countries and making the Gas Monkey brand a household name. Everyone wanted a piece of their magic, from garage to global empire. Richard Rawlings understood television better than most people in the auto world. He knew that every successful show needed a brand behind it. While others were building cars, he was building an empire. He trademarked the Gas Monkey name and expanded faster than anyone could imagine. T-shirts, hats, energy drinks, beer, restaurants, and even live events. The garage wasn't just a workshop anymore, it was a tourist attraction. People flew to Dallas just to take selfies in front of the green monkey logo. By 2015, Richard was everywhere. He had gone from mechanic to millionaire, from car builder to celebrity entrepreneur. He hosted events, appeared in commercials, and opened Gas Monkey Bar and Grill, a massive restaurant and music venue that carried his brand's wild energy. But as the cameras kept rolling and the money piled up, the friendly garage environment began to change. What used to be a tight-knit team of builders turned into a full-scale production machine. The stress of deadlines, the pressure of television ratings, and the constant public attention started to wear everyone down. Every fan remembers the magic between Richard and Aaron. It was lightning in a bottle. Richard was all about the deals and the showmanship. Aaron was all about the craft and the details. That balance made the show perfect. But fame has a way of testing even the strongest partnerships. As the show exploded in popularity, the builds became faster, bigger, and more expensive. Discovery wanted more drama and tighter turnarounds, and that meant less time for Aaron's creative process. Aaron wanted perfection. Richard wanted production speed. Their goals no longer matched. Viewers started noticing the tension, small arguments during builds, uncomfortable silences in the garage, and projects that looked rushed instead of refined. In 2017, the news dropped like a bomb. Aaron Kaufman was leaving Fast and Loud. Fans were heartbroken. Discovery tried to frame it as a mutual decision, but behind the scenes it was more complicated. In later interviews, Aaron admitted he felt the show had lost its authenticity. The early passion for building cool cars had turned into a strict schedule of repeat formulas designed for TV, not for innovation. When he walked away, the chemistry that defined the show disappeared with him. Fast and Loud, without Aaron Kaufman, was like a band losing its lead guitarist. The sound was still there, but the soul was missing. Richard Rawlings, fame, fortune, and fallout. Richard's charisma made him the face of the show, but fame can be a double-edged sword. As Fast and Loud grew, Richard's personal life became tabloid fuel. His marriages fell apart, and rumors about money, control, and ego started circulating. He was now a global brand, and with that came scrutiny. Fans began saying that Richard seemed more focused on sponsorships and social media than on actually building cars. Former employees claimed he was rarely in the garage. Meanwhile, Gas Monkey Bar and Grill was dealing with lawsuits and public disputes. Through it all, Richard kept smiling for the cameras. He was smart, business-savvy, and confident that the Gas Monkey empire could survive anything. He launched a new series, Garage Rehab, where he helped struggling shops rebuild their businesses. It showed a different side of him, the mentor, the businessman, the fixer. But even Garage Rehab couldn't recreate the raw magic of Fast and Loud. Fans missed the old days, the original crew, and the unpredictable energy that came from watching two friends turn junk into gold. Trouble with Discovery Channel. Inside Discovery, the winds were changing. By 2018, reality television was shifting away from car shows and toward high-drama survival and lifestyle content. Ratings for automotive programs were slipping. At the same time, Discovery executives were tightening budgets. They wanted shorter seasons and fewer expensive builds. Richard, however, wanted more creative control and more time for complex projects. The two sides began to drift apart. He hinted at his frustration during interviews, saying he felt the show no longer represented who he truly was. For years, Fast and Loud had been his identity, but now it was starting to feel like a cage. Producers wanted speed and drama. Richard wanted freedom and control. The tension was growing quietly but steadily. In early 2020, the global pandemic hit, and production on nearly every Discovery show came to a halt. Fast and Loud was no exception. The garage closed its doors, the cameras stopped rolling, and the team went home, unsure when they would return. Months passed, and fans began asking when new episodes would air. Then, in late 2020, Richard Rawlings finally broke the silence. In a YouTube video, he announced that Fast and Loud was officially done. There was no finale, no farewell episode, no goodbye to fans. Just a short statement. We're moving on. Richard claimed it was his decision. He said it was time for a new chapter, new media projects, new ventures, and a fresh start without television contracts. But industry insiders suggested there was more to the story. Sources said the relationship between Richard and Discovery had become strained. Creative disagreements, budget cuts, and the network's push toward streaming left Fast and Loud without a clear future. Neither side wanted to compromise, and eventually both walked away. Even though the show ended, its impact is undeniable. Fast and Loud reignited the global car culture and made custom garages cool again. It inspired countless YouTube builders and automotive influencers to pick up cameras and start documenting their own builds. Richard Rawlings became a household name, a marketing genius who turned a garage logo into a global lifestyle brand. Aaron Kaufman continued his journey on his own terms, hosting Shifting Gears and later Aaron Needs a Job, both focusing more on craftsmanship than drama. Cracks inside the Gas Monkey empire. When Fast and Loud ended suddenly, fans thought it was just another network decision. But inside the walls of Gas Monkey Garage, the truth was far more complicated. At its peak, Gas Monkey was more than a garage. It was a global brand pulling in millions each year through merchandise, bars, restaurants, and sponsorships. Yet behind the roar of engines, the empire was starting to shake. Richard Rawlings was running a full-scale media business while juggling reality television, multiple companies, and non-stop public appearances. The pressure was enormous. According to several former employees, the energy inside the garage had changed completely. What once felt like brotherhood now felt like corporate management. People who had been there from the early days began walking out. Some felt overworked, some felt underpaid, and others said the fun that once defined the show was gone. Rumors of unpaid invoices, lawsuits, and creative disagreements began to circulate online. The lawsuits and legal storms. Success attracts attention, and not all of it is good. As the Gas Monkey brand expanded, so did the number of legal battles attached to Richard Rawlings' name. One of the most public disputes came from the restaurant and bar business. Partners who helped fund Gas Monkey Bar and Grill claimed Richard broke financial agreements and misused the brand. Richard denied wrongdoing, but the lawsuits created negative headlines that spread quickly across car forums and social media. The legal costs were high, and the tension only grew worse as multiple business partners accused each other of fraud and breach of contract. Even though Richard stayed confident in interviews, insiders said these lawsuits drained time, focus, and energy away from the show. Then came the network tension. Discovery Channel executives were reportedly frustrated by the delays caused by Richard's outside commitments. He was stretched too thin between restaurants, brand deals, and his new projects. Production schedules became chaotic. Episodes took longer to complete, and budgets went higher than planned. Richard Rawlings always considered himself more than a TV personality. He was the architect of his brand and the driving force behind the Gas Monkey identity. As Fast and Loud grew, he wanted more control over how the show was filmed, edited, and presented. Discovery Channel, however, had its own priorities. Networks rely on format consistency. They wanted shorter builds, faster episodes, and a balance between drama and business. Richard wanted longer projects, creative storytelling, and the freedom to show his life outside the garage. That disagreement became a turning point. Richard began clashing with producers over storylines, build deadlines, and the type of cars featured. Some insiders claimed he would stop filming certain scenes if he felt they made him look bad. Others said he was simply tired of repeating the same pattern year after year. In one interview after the show ended, Richard admitted that he had been pushing for changes for a long time. He said the show was starting to feel trapped in a formula, and he wanted to evolve. Discovery did not share that vision. When COVID-19 hit in 2020, television production across the world shut down. Discovery placed every show on hold to protect crews and control costs. At first, the break seemed temporary. Fans expected Fast and Loud to return once restrictions were lifted, but something changed during that pause. Richard had time to step away from the chaos and think. He later said that for the first time in years, he was able to breathe and look at his life from the outside. He realized he had been living on camera for nearly a decade. The constant stress, the deadlines, the drama, the lawsuits, and the creative control battles had drained him. While Discovery was restructuring its lineup for the streaming era, Richard made a decision of his own. He would not come back. So when fans waited for a new season, they received instead a simple online announcement from Richard Rawlings. He thanked Discovery Channel, thanked the crew, and said the show had reached its finish line. No finale, no reunion, no grand send-off. Just the end of an era. The empire that almost collapsed. After the cameras stopped, Gas Monkey Garage faced its toughest test yet. The restaurants had already begun closing one by one before the pandemic, and the merchandise sales dropped sharply when the show ended. Without weekly exposure on television, the brand lost visibility. Richard had to make drastic changes to keep his empire alive. He downsized operations, closed locations, and restructured his business into new divisions focused on media and marketing. At one point, online rumors suggested that the original Gas Monkey Garage had shut down completely. Richard quickly denied it, explaining that he was simply reorganizing and rebuilding for a new digital age. Still, the image of Gas Monkey had changed. It was no longer the crazy, rebellious garage filled with grease, laughter, and loud engines. it had become a quiet, more polished company focused on online projects and branding deals. The fans who fell in love with the raw, unpredictable energy of the early days missed the old Richard, the one who spent nights in the shop arguing with Aaron over carburetors and timing belts. Richard Rawlings in the aftermath. After leaving Discovery, Richard did not disappear. Instead, he reinvented himself as a digital entrepreneur. He launched Gas Monkey Garage YouTube, started his own podcast, and began releasing behind-the-scenes stories that Discovery never showed. He talked openly about burnout and about how the television format limited what he could do. He said that now, without the restrictions of a network, he could finally share unfiltered content and connect directly with fans. On social media, he began showing glimpses of his personal life again: cars, road trips, business advice, and sometimes reflections about how fame had changed him. He also began collaborating with other YouTubers, appearing at car shows and rebuilding his image as an independent creator rather than a TV celebrity. Aaron Kaufman's path forward. While Richard was reinventing himself online, Aaron Kaufman was already carving his own legacy. His show Shifting Gears on Discovery gave fans a glimpse into his personal style: slower builds, innovative engineering, and creative experiments. Even though his show lasted only 2 seasons, it re-established Aaron as one of the most respected builders in the automotive world. He later appeared in Aaron Needs a Job, a travel-style documentary that explored how other tradespeople across America work with machinery and craft. Unlike Richard, Aaron avoided fame and focused on craftsmanship. He runs ArcLight Fabrication, a small but respected shop in Dallas that builds custom Ford trucks. Fans often say his departure from Fast and Loud was the best decision he ever made because it allowed him to return to what he truly loved: the quiet after the chaos. For almost a decade, Fast and Loud was a non-stop storm of engines, deadlines, and adrenaline. When the show ended, silence filled the Gas Monkey garage. There were no crews, no producers, no pressure. For the first time, Richard Rawlings stood alone with his thoughts. He later admitted in interviews that the quiet felt strange. For years, his entire identity had been built around television fame. Suddenly, he had to face what came after. Was he still Richard Rawlings the car guy, or just Richard Rawlings the celebrity? He started small again. He reconnected with his original passion for cars, spending time at the garage without cameras or scripts. He rebuilt a few classics on his own terms for his own satisfaction. There were no deadlines or producers yelling, "Cut!" It was just him, a wrench, and an engine. That period of reflection was the beginning of a new phase in his life. The birth of Gas Monkey 2.0. Richard realized that Fast and Loud had given him something more valuable than fame. It had given him a platform. Millions of loyal fans still wanted to hear from him. So instead of walking away, he decided to rebuild Gas Monkey into something completely different. He launched a full digital media network under the Gas Monkey brand. YouTube became his new stage. There were no network restrictions, no time limits, and no scripted drama. It was pure Richard, raw and unfiltered. The Gas Monkey Garage YouTube channel began posting behind-the-scenes videos, interviews, and fresh car builds. Fans could finally see the real atmosphere of the shop, not just the edited version that Discovery showed on TV. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Richard also started hosting podcasts and live events, talking about business, motivation, and the lessons he learned from building an empire that nearly broke him. Instead of hiding his mistakes, he began sharing them. That honesty brought fans back who had once turned away. He partnered with digital creators, appeared at car shows around the world, and turned Gas Monkey into a global lifestyle brand once again. Richard's transition from TV celebrity to digital entrepreneur was not easy, but it was smart. He no longer had to answer to producers or advertisers. Every decision was his. He focused heavily on online branding, collaborating with influencers, and connecting directly with fans through social media. His strategy was simple: keep the Gas Monkey name alive by evolving with the times. He launched limited edition car auctions, exclusive merchandise drops, and new collaborations with car part companies. Gas Monkey was no longer just about building and flipping cars. It became a brand built around freedom, personality, and storytelling. This reinvention allowed Richard to stay relevant even in a post-television world. The same audience that once watched him on Discovery now watched him online, where he could talk freely without worrying about network approval. He once said in a podcast, "I lost control of my brand once. I'll never let that happen again." Rebuilding the reputation. After the lawsuits, the show's cancellation, and years of headlines, Richard had to rebuild not just his business, but his image. Many fans had seen him as a businessman first and a car builder second. Now, he wanted to prove that his love for cars was real. He began hosting charity car events, supporting local mechanics, and mentoring younger builders trying to break into the industry. He also spent time restoring his older projects, including some of the original Gas Monkey builds that made the show famous. In his interviews, he spoke more openly about burnout and the cost of fame. He described how being on camera for 10 straight years made him forget why he started in the first place. He wanted people to understand that success can be dangerous when you lose balance. By showing humility and self-awareness, Richard earned back respect. Even some of his critics admitted that his comeback was impressive. Aaron Kaufman's continued journey. While Richard was rebuilding his empire, Aaron Kaufman continued down a quieter but equally inspiring path. His company, ArcLight Fabrication, focused on custom Ford truck parts and one-of-a-kind builds. His work was slower, but it reflected pure craftsmanship. Aaron's followers admired how he stuck to his principles. He turned down multiple offers for new reality shows and only took part in projects that aligned with his creative values. In interviews, he occasionally mentioned that leaving Fast and Loud had been difficult but necessary. He respected Richard for his business vision, even if they had different philosophies. Their friendship might never return to what it once was, but there was mutual acknowledgement that both had achieved greatness in their own ways. The fans and the myth of return. Even years after the cancellation, Fast and Loud fans have never stopped asking the same question: will it ever come back? Richard has hinted a few times that he would be open to doing a new kind of show, one that focuses on entrepreneurship, business, and modern car culture, rather than the old flip-and-sell format. He believes the future of automotive entertainment lies online, not on cable television. However, Discovery has moved on to other formats, and the chances of a full-scale revival are slim. Yet the demand remains strong. Old clips of Fast and Loud still rack up millions of views on YouTube and TikTok. People rewatch the best builds, the wildest moments, and the hilarious arguments between Richard and Aaron. The nostalgia is powerful. For many fans, Fast and Loud represented a time when reality TV felt genuine. There was no fake scripting or glamorous post-production, just cars, people, and passion. Richard knows this, and that is why he often says the show never truly died. It simply evolved into something new. The legacy of Fast and Loud. Looking back, Fast and Loud did more than entertain. It shaped an entire generation of car lovers. It made garages cool, inspired young mechanics, and reminded viewers that creativity and grit can build something from nothing. Richard Rawlings became a symbol of ambition. Aaron Kaufman became a symbol of integrity. Together, they represented two sides of the same dream. One focused on business, the other on artistry. The show may have ended, but its influence is everywhere. Hundreds of YouTube builders and restoration shops credit Fast and Loud as the reason they picked up a wrench. The modern car content scene owes much of its success to the energy and storytelling that the show pioneered. Gas Monkey Garage remains one of the most recognized automotive brands in the world. Even people who have never seen the show recognize the logo and know what it stands for. What the story teaches us. The rise and fall of Fast and Loud tell a bigger story about fame, creativity, and control. It shows how success can take something pure and turn it into a business machine, and how true passion can still find its way back once the noise fades. Richard Rawlings learned that control is freedom. Aaron Kaufman learned that peace is success. Discovery learned that authenticity is what keeps audiences watching. And fans learned that real stories always outlast scripted drama. Fast and Loud was wild, imperfect, and sometimes controversial, but it was real. That is why people still care. As of now, Gas Monkey Garage continues to operate in Dallas, Texas. The team works on select builds for private clients and showcases them online. Richard travels often, appearing at car festivals, conventions, and charity events. His online presence continues to grow, with millions of followers watching his latest projects and business ventures. He even hinted at new collaborations and digital shows that would explore the world of custom cars in a more interactive way. Aaron remains focused on arc-light fabrication, keeping his circles small and his builds personal. He rarely gives interviews, but occasionally shares glimpses of his projects on social media, which always receive overwhelming support. If Fast and Loud inspired you or taught you never to give up on your passion, give this video a like, hit subscribe, and share it with every gearhead you know.